Thank you very much. The next team we will hear from is Boston College. And you can stand or sit, however you'd like to do it.
I'm sure I'm up to a copy of the
Okay, thank you. All right, so why don't you give me a minute? Oh, you're going to need to take this and you're going to need to set it for who I am that you'll be speaking to and who you are.
So we are from the Boston Consulting Group, and we're presenting on a case involving Facebook, which I will describe, and you are a tech conference, so a company in a tech conference.
So you're the Boston Consulting Group, and you're speaking to a tech conference?
Exactly.
It's going to be companies that do research similar to what Facebook has been doing in this case, and we're just advising them on how to do it ethically, legally, and well, as to not affect any of their users.
Okay, and is there a particular level of people at the tech companies you're speaking to at this conference?
Probably executives, but any.
Okay, just want to clarify how I'm listening.
And just to give you some quick background information, so we're specifically referring to an experiment that Facebook conducted in 2012, in which they conducted a week-long experiment on 700,000 of their users and manipulated these users' newsfeeds to increase either positive or negative content. And the results of the experiment showed that increasing negative content caused users to post more negative comments themselves, whereas increasing positive content caused users to post more positive comments.
I read that in your summary. Okay,
cool.
So let's get back to, let's see. Ready to start? Yeah.
We focused on the situation's ethical factors by using the Langendorfer-Brockness ethics model. And this is a seven-step model that enables users to apply their own sense of right and wrong to the issue. So the application of internal compass is helpful because it allows us to consider the problem not as a black and white issue, but rather as a complex situation in which we apply our own values. And step one has us determine the facts of the situation. How does it feel when someone takes advantage of your good faith? I'm not talking about a bait and switch, where you see a car ad and head to the showroom, only to find there's one car available at that price. I'm talking about something far more stealthy, where you're an unsuspecting pawn. This is what we are concerned about today in the case of Facebook. Facebook data can be used with stunning accuracy to predict your gender, political leanings, sexual orientation, relationship status, and IQ. In 2010, Facebook even increased voter turnout in the election. By filtering out positive words on a user's newsfeed, positive word usage decreased by 0.1% and negative word usage increased by 1/25%. This may seem extremely small, but in the case of Facebook with 1.3 billion users, small changes are quickly amplified. For step 2 of our model, we identified 4 key stakeholders. The first is Facebook itself. The reputation of the firm was damaged, and potential loss of customers or lawsuits are possible consequences. The employees are also impacted by the reputation of the company and may be uncomfortable with the ethical values of the research. Our third stakeholder is the user. User trust in a brand is what generates continued business. Lastly, the researchers are impacted by the possibility of future research projects and the use of the platform. With its vast geographic and demographic scope, Facebook is the ideal playground for researchers. For step 3, we examined 2 relevant values. The first is research ethics. Was the experiment legal? Institutional review boards, or IRBs, did not apply to the research. Given this, should it be allowable? We wanted to direct attention to why this case differs from other A/B testing. Google search results in ad experiments often go unnoticed. So the unrest in this case did not come from the fact that Facebook was changing the formats of the newsfeed. Rather, it comes from the fact that the emotions of the users were manipulated. 2 interesting thoughts. One is how good are Facebook posts at actually predicting the emotional status of the user. It's very difficult to quantify emotion. And 2, if Facebook can gauge emotional state, does it have an obligation to increase the happiness of its users? Perhaps depressed users could be targeted with happier messages. Classifying Facebook users as lab rats is a dramatic overstatement, but this is a good opportunity for us to consider the impact of technology on our daily lives. The second relevant value is disclosure or transparency. Many Facebook users have argued that they would have preferred to know the study was going on. Unfortunately, this may have affected the results and caused bias. The word research was not actually in Facebook's terms of service until May of 2012. This was actually after the research was completed, and so this interaction feels intimate for the user who's conversing with their friends online. What are the obligations of a company like Facebook that has the power to shape our collective reality?
So moving on to the fourth step of the model, we're going to be looking at the options, and we find that there are 3 alternative courses of action that Facebook may take in this situation. So the first option, end its research endeavors entirely. That'll decrease its risk of finding itself in any legal or ethical gray zone. The second option, keep going as they are, maintain their current research methods, they can best ensure consistent operations and sustain profitability, and they can follow proven successful practices. They also have the third option of updating their research methods, and that will maintain one of the main money-making arms of the business while also adjusting the practices to achieve these profits and making them more ethical in their practices. So moving on to step 5, we're going to assess how consistent these options that I just presented from step 4 are with the values that we presented in step 3. So the first option of just ending their research isn't very aligned with these values. It's effectively ignoring them rather than addressing them. As previously discussed, it's important to integrate research ethics and disclosure with the decision that a company makes, especially in the realms of study and research. Yet that shouldn't push a company away from those realms, which would seem to be the case if Facebook was to end all of their research endeavors. The second option doesn't appear to be better and may in fact be worse. By maintaining its current research standards, Facebook would harbor a gap between its actions and the values relevant to the issue. This response is primarily focused on the legality of Facebook's actions, with some emphasis on the business efficacy, while yielding little credibility to ethical concerns. Rather than to flee from relevant values or to ignore them altogether, the third option recommends a balance between business decisions, legality, and ethical issues. Updating research methods can be a balance, and it will responsibly ensure that ethical standards are being fully serviced, while more clearly defining and meeting legal measures and keeping relative consistency in the operations of the business. So the sixth step is examining the consequences of each of these options in order to ensure that the best option by the option's value consistency doesn't have any unforeseen negative consequences, and one of the options in the former evaluation doesn't have any positive consequences that we might be missing. So in ending its research endeavors, Facebook attempts to maintain its appeal to customers, and it would actually have the counter effect of decreasing its appeal to researchers. But still, it produces the more positive change of ensuring some privacy for their users. The second option, that of maintaining its current research methods, would see Facebook run the risk of alienating its users and compromising the ethical values of the company. Future issues might arise in the same way this one at hand did, leading to increased user distrust of the company. While initially it appears that the decision would allow Facebook to maintain relationships with the researchers, repeated negative responses might decrease its customer base and therefore interfere with its ability to actually collect that data that those researchers want. Option 3, which calls for the update of current research methods, might slightly decrease attractiveness to researchers who seek an unbounded wealth of data, or slightly hamper the profitability of the company due to the cost those measures might take. However, this option, as stated before, successfully balances business decisions with issues of legality and ethics. It provides a better experience for users by ensuring that ethical research is conducted and proper disclosure is provided, and therefore diminishes the risk of future problems. At the same time, Facebook would maintain a robust platform for research and innovation, maintaining its powerful business reputation while enhancing its ethical standing. These 6 steps lead us to the 7th and final step of the solution.
So our recommended approach is 3-pronged. First, we demand a better notification system. Users will be notified at the beginning of the study or debriefed in order to meet the common research standards for informed consent. One possibility is an email update for new changes. Second, terms and conditions need to be transparent and thorough. Research must be covered and outlined in a clear manner. Lastly, stricter research guidelines are necessary. Research purposes, procedures, and possible risks should all be explicit. We also recommend a few things for the industry as a whole. One of Facebook's core values is to be open. Facebook believes a more open world is a better world because people with more information can make better decisions and have a greater impact. This being said, the IRB should develop new rules for online networks. The law is behind on regulating emerging industries, but also delayed on regulating the research that fuels growth for these industries. We don't want consumers to ever feel taken advantage of by a corporation. Abusing a user's good faith is doing a significant harm and should be avoided at all costs. They could go even further and create a Silicon Valley review board to review this type of research. Facebook could become a leader in the industry on research ethics and partner with companies such as Google or Apple to create this body, which would also mitigate some of the costs that would involve creating such a board. Our recommendation for more transparent rules and research methods arises from the prevalent problem of social media networks that do not fit typical regulation codes. We believe companies that follow business, legal, and ethical guidelines will best maintain and grow user bases. Thank you.